You see, from a father's standpoint, for those of you that are parents or have grandchildren, the joy that would bring to your heart and your soul to be able to look at and people that you've had, the God-ordained responsibility of raising for the Lord, and to be able to look at the way they're living their life and to look at that and say, from an honest perspective, I have no bigger joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. My children here are young, but I hope that someday, it's my prayer that when they get to be old enough to choose independently, that Jess and I will be able to have done a good enough job raising them. Hopefully, I can say that they're walking in truth. So we're going to open up a word prayer, and then we're going to get ready to the message. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We do want to thank you for just the beautiful weather and just the wonderful time of year it is here. We thank you for the freedom that we have that we celebrated this past week here in our country, where we can meet and assemble here together without fear of being oppressed and people trying to stop us from doing so. I pray you help us to take full liberty of that today. Speak to our hearts, speak to our minds, and bring Jesus' name. Amen. And as we go through this, I'm going to point out some scriptures, but I would encourage you, if you have anything you want to add, feel free to raise your hand and speak out. I'd like this to be more interactive if possible, because I know that there's people here and they have different relationships in your lives that I don't have in mine. In fact, I just became an uncle in May. My brother and his wife had a baby. So at this point, I don't have nieces, nephews. Really, the only people that are depending on me, looking at me as a spiritual role model, for the most part, are my daughters. But I think if we look at it, if we look at some other texts from the verses for the Bible today, it shows that although it's talking about here, it says, I have no greater joy than my children walk in truth. If you know the context here, he's not talking about his biological children. Okay. What John is talking about here is people that he has had some spiritual influence over at some point in their lives, and he's looking back on them and said, they're still walking with the Lord. Now that can be family, that can be friends, that can be bus workers, and really with VBS coming up, that can be somebody that you've had any type of influence in presenting the gospel to them and living a spiritual life before them. And if we think about it, oftentimes, those are the people who are a little bit more accepting of us presenting the gospel to them. I know in my wife's family, Jess is the only one in her family, to my knowledge, is saved. They're all very devout Catholic. And it's very difficult for them to hear the gospel from somebody that they've changed diapers from. It's just different. They're much more accepting to hear it from other people that are outside the family sometimes. So, even though this says that my children walk in truth, just keep in mind here that as we go through it, he's not talking about physical, biological children. One of the quotes that I came across when discussing this message or preparing this message was from Albert Barnes, and he says, of all Christian parents respecting their own children, the highest joy that a Christian parent can have is to know that his children, whether at home or abroad, adhere to the truths of religion and live in accordance with the requirements of the gospel of Christ. If a child wished to confer the highest possible happiness upon his parents with them, it would be by becoming a decided Christian. If when abroad in foreign lands or in his own, he wished to convey intelligence to them that would most thrill their hearts with joy, it would be to announce to them that he had given his heart to God. There is no joy in a family like that when children are converted. There is no news that comes from abroad that diffuses so much happiness through the domestic circle as the intelligence of the child is truly converted to the Savior. There is nothing that would give more peace to the dying pillow of a Christian parent than to be able to leave this world the assurance that his children would always walk in truth. Now you mentioned you've got a new great grandbaby on the way. And we see this biologically. We have those types of relationships. We have children, we have grandchildren, we have great-grandchildren, nieces, nephews. Does anybody feel comfortable if they want to maybe just share some of the family ties that you've had, influences, other than your own biological children? You've had some spiritual, some role in their spiritual upbringing. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to share? Nieces, nephews, cousins?
You gotta say it again.
Oh. Any relationships that you've had in your life, other than children, your own children, you've had some role in their spiritual upbringing? Anybody think of anything? Okay, Sunday school teachers, yes. Sunday school teachers is one. And oftentimes the interesting thing about that with Sunday school teachers is you'll get both sides of the road, really. You'll have some kids that have been trained in church and the parents are basically reinforcing what you're teaching in their home. But oftentimes you'll have kids that have no spiritual background at all at home, where you are really, in a lot of times, you are the spiritual parent in a lot of regards to those children. Yep, that's a good one.
I have one nephew that grew up in an Awana club I worked in.
Okay.
And then two of my nephews I send the morning devotion to through email. I just send a prayer with that and hope that makes an impact on it.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, so Awanas or other kinds of children's clubs, in any type of way you can stay connected with, email, texting, however it is you choose to encourage or edify others. Yep. Anybody else have any other relationships that they?
I think what I personally experienced was when I came to Mount Morris in '72. This church did not have a good Sunday school program, and I ended up in the Presbyterian church, and they did. They had a backup, and it was fundamental. And I taught as a Sunday school teacher in that program. Then when Pastor Phillips came, we started having great Sunday school here, and by that time my wife and 3 kids were coming here, and Annabelle Shirtliff was my daughter's teacher. Now the boys didn't say too much about Sunday school, except they loved the Shirtliffs, and oh, that's probably why. But my daughter would talk about Louise Thompson and Annabelle Shirtliff. I know they had a great effect on her. And all 3 of my children were saved, I believe, through the Sunday school program here at the Lincoln Baptist Church.
That kind of leads me to my next point. I'll hold on that. Did you have something to say to me?
She forgot.
Yeah, okay.
Because I was listening.
Does anybody else have any other camp counselors? That's something Jess and I are kind of going from now. We're down at the State Bible Conference Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, while the adults are, and they call it Tabernacle, which is the main service they have. We're running the teen service, which has been encouraging because when you hear, it seems like every time you turn on the news, you hear the radio, when you hear anything about teenagers, it's pretty negative. So it's been really encouraging lately to realize when you're out there are a lot of good teens out there. There are a lot of young people that do love the Lord, living for the Lord. Which, again, as a father of little ones, it's encouraging to see that that there are people that are loving the Lord.
We called it Blue News Club. And my husband and I he was in charge of the boys, and I was in charge of the girls. We took a group to the state for a week.
Okay.
And stayed with them. And that was some experience.
It's
a great time.
good. Yeah, so again, we see the effects of starting with children when they're young. Does any call these out there?
The thought that I had was that many times we are doing this, not knowing this, how the Lord is working. And I've had that experience with an older person, older village, whatever they are, comes to me and says, "Oh, Mrs. Hill, I want to thank you for something I had done that I didn't even know I was out."
Yeah.
So that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the types of things. I know with my girlfriend, Black Sea and Allie, every church we go to, when we pray, I did pray for people that their Sunday school teachers. I'm like, when were we at? Just we were there on vacation 3 years ago. I don't even remember. But children have a natural affinity for those who have invested in a young age, and that stays with them through their life. Now, along that same if you have something to say.
I was just going to say, in a previous Sunday school teacher, I had people who come in, they don't even recognize him and say, "Oh, my Sunday school teacher 30 years ago,
Yeah.
or 20 years ago, growing up."
Yeah. of the things that you invest, like you say, a lot of times it might not seem like you're doing that much, but what you're allowing God to do through you is making a tremendous impact on people's lives.
I had a child in my Sunday school class, and the word was Ethiopian. Well, I had to go Ethiopian, and they finally got it. And the boys in town now, and every once in a while when I see him, they say, Mrs. Adam, I can say Ethiopian.
But isn't it amazing the things that they remember? That's simple.
I think we've been talking all about being within the church, Sunday school, youth meetings, that sort of thing. But as a public school teacher, even you can do that. You can't say too much, but they know how you live and what you believe and how you think about things. I remember that meeting, a discussion about should there be censorship in music. And I was very, very careful not to give an opinion, not to say anything. Say, what do you think? And they said, well, you think. They kept saying to me, well, you think, well, you know. And I said, I haven't said anything, but they knew me, and they knew what I would think. So, even though I didn't say anything.
Yeah, how you live your life, they were able to decipher what it was. Yeah, I worked in public schools, I still do. When I was down in Maryland, I coached varsity basketball. And I had some, I guess we call them like kind of street kids. Like they were kids that I would go out and actually recruit kids. I'd drive around the blocks and say, hey, you love tall, come play basketball. Because they'd be out, and typically you see a group of 16, 17-year-old young men out on the street corner after dark. They're not doing flash drives. You know, they're up to something they probably shouldn't do. But I had one kid, and I had a rule, and I could get away with it because I had a rule in practice that if they swore or cussed, they had to come to church with me on Sunday. And I could do that because outside of school hours, so it's technically voluntary, they didn't have to be on the porch, but if they wanted to play the next game, they were going to be on the porch. I had one kid, he got to the point, he didn't really have anybody at home. He was 16, he had a mom, but the mom was always working, trying to take care of him. And he had like 4 younger siblings, and I think 3 or 4 nieces and nephews or cousins. It got to the point I started seeing like at lunch and stuff, like the soups and things that they give for like, or the crackers they give for soups, he was kind of hoarding them and cleaning his dice. But this kid, I think he's got food at home. So, but he was one of the tougher kids. He was a tough kid. But he would swear every day in practice, and Tommy broke the habit, and I saw he'd catch himself and then swear anyway, just so I'd have to come pick him up for church on Sunday, because when I pick him up, I'd make sure he had lunch and dinner and things like that for the rest of the day. But I remember when I left the year before he graduated, but I went back down for another kid's graduation party, and the things that he remembered, he brought up, it wasn't anything basketball related. He was a very bad athlete. It was the things that he remembered from sitting in Sunday school when I made him come, when I thought he didn't want to be there, wasn't paying attention. So the impact they're having on people, especially on younger people, like they try to make it, they're too cool, you know, to actually act like they like what's going on, but you're making an impact even if you don't realize it. Now, most of the discussion so far has centered around like children and young people. Why do you think it is? Why do you think we put so much impact or so much emphasis on impacting younger people? They learn easier for sure, yes. If you had to guess, out of all people in America that claim to be saved, what is the percentage of them you think get saved as children? What is it? 70%? Okay, can we hire? Do we have any other guesses? About 85% of people that have been saved in America claim to have been saved by the age of 14, which is typically before going into high school. And the large majority of it is usually even younger than that. Because typically once they get older, and really around 11, 12, statistics shows that's where it's kind of the attitude and the independence comes back, and where they're a little bit more resistant to just accepting somebody else's word for things they want to. You know, that little rebellious attitude kind of comes in a little bit. Okay. Now the important thing here we're going to kind of look at, I want you to think about all the people you said you had an impact in their lives. Spiritually speaking, family, Sunday school, VBS, any walk of life, no matter what it is. Because the thing we already talked about, the importance of reaching children when they're young is because most people accept Christ when they're younger. But one of the statistics that kind of caught my attention a little bit was that of those who attended church twice a month or more for at least 1 year in high school, okay, so people who were saved before age 14 and attended church somewhat consistently in high school, over 70% of people who had some church, spiritual, religious influence in life in high school, 70% of those people between the ages of 23 and 30 stopped attending church regularly, at least for 1 year. Okay. Why now? That's those are just the statistics. So typically it has to be between the ages of 18 and 22. Okay, the higher percentage between 18 and 22. Why do you think that is? Why do you think children who are saved under the age of 14, why do you think typically when they turn 18, they kind of get a little more freedom and independence? Why do you think that is that when they do, there's usually, or oftentimes there's a tendency to get away from church and the other people who love them?
They were more independent, went to school somewhere after high school.
Yep, more independent, went to school outside of high school, maybe had other influences in their lives.
I remember feeling just what you're explaining at that age, and what kept me in the church was people asked me to get involved in ministry, came alongside me and mentored me, and that kept me in the church because I felt the same pull, like, where am I? You know, what should I do? And
yeah. Those are two good reasons. Anybody have any other thoughts or comments on it? Well, one of the things that came up in again, one of the studies I was looking at, and this part I started looking at because there's a guy at our church on Friday nights, we ended in June, but we were going through I don't know if you guys know Dave Ramsey, he has like this financial piece, like biblical financing. Justin and I hosted at our home for our young adult Sunday school class, hopefully so that they could learn some biblical stewardship as they kind of transition into independence. But one of the he's a kid. He's 24 years old, and he came to me after, and he stayed there for like 3 hours with me. And he said, I don't know what's going on. He's like, I'm growing up in church. My family's in church. They're active, they're faithful. He's like, I've always loved going to church. I've always wanted to go to church. He's like, now when I get up on Sundays, I feel like I'm only going because my parents are there. I expect it. And so I started thinking, it's a little, it's different. I've never heard somebody so candid about it that way, but as I dug into it, that tends to be a pretty normal thing between those ages, what we've already seen. And part of the reason that, at least from the few studies that I found, is that there tends to be oftentimes a big emphasis on ministering to younger kids, which is great. But sometimes as they get older, we look at it and say, well, they should know how to live their lives. And we don't have as much, we're not investing as much into them, maybe as we do in younger kids. And that's not always a bad thing. There comes a point sometime where, you got to kind of grow up a little bit spiritually. There is a personal part of this, but it's also very important to make sure that as kids grow up and they become teenagers and young adults, that they don't feel like they're on their own. Because eventually what happens is then we have 18, 22-year-olds who grow up to be in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're then starting their own families to raise the Lord. And the last time they felt like anybody really invested in them was a long time ago back in VBS for their younger years. And what happens is, I know for me, the Sunday school teachers that I had growing up, Patrick High workers, Alana workers, a lot of them had passed away. So if I was going to look back at my life and say, hey, I want my kids to be involved in these ministries, a lot of those people that had that type of influence in my life aren't around anymore. So it's hard sometimes for younger adults to kind of see, well, who do I take them to? Because if they haven't been, you've been pouring into them all those years since they were teenagers or younger, it's hard for them sometimes to get the direction to steer their own family into. Okay. Now, if you want to turn over to Proverbs chapter 17. Now, as we're going through these, remember, I need to try to remember to keep in mind that we're trying to look at this more from a spiritual standpoint, not necessarily just a biological relationship between mothers and fathers and their children. Okay? When I think about it more along the lines of those of you who had a spiritual relationship with. Okay, Proverbs chapter 17, verse 6 says, children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children are their fathers. Okay, so we see here that children have a natural desire and interest in being like and pleasing their parents. Now, that's not just in a biological sense, not just biological parents. I'm sure those of you that have worked with children, if you've done VBS, if you've done Sunday school, if you've done any type of ministry with children, what's the first thing that they do when they finish their arts and crafts project? They run right up to you and they want to show you, right? As soon as they learn a song and they know the motions, what's the first thing they want to do? They want to sing it for you. They learn a memory verse. They want to tell you. There's a natural tendency that God has put in children's hearts to want to please their spiritual, I can use this word, the spiritual parents. Those that are leading them and investing in them spiritually. Okay, so it's very important to realize that, just like we talked about earlier, we might not always realize the impact that we're having, but they have a God-given tendency deep in their spirit, the way that God created them, to want to have that desire to please those who are investing in them spiritually. Okay? So, we're talking about here, if you remember, the question here I want to ask then, and brings to the point, is how's your walk? Okay? So we talk about 3 John, I have no greater joy than those my children walk in truth. Okay? So if people are looking at us, they want to please us, it's very important for us to be honest with ourselves in the question, well, how is my walk? How is my walk with the Lord that other children, other people, other younger Christians, other younger adults even, are looking at to emulate? How is my personal walk? And the reasons why these are important is number one is they're watching. Okay, why does my walk matter? Number one is they're watching. We'll turn over to John chapter 8. John chapter 8 and verse 38. It says, I speak that which I have seen with my Father, and you do that which you have seen with your Father. Children, young adults, teenagers, whoever it is that we have an influence over, they are going to speak the things that we teach them. The things that they talk about, the things that they discuss are going to be largely influenced by the impact that we have on them in their lives. I think about this with an easy example for me. I know my father, obviously, like, I love him. He's someone that actually led me to the Lord as a young boy. But even outside of the areas of what we consider spiritual things, my dad grew up in Maryland. He's a big Baltimore Orioles baseball fan. For that reason, my brother, me, and all my cousins are big Orioles fans. Now, is that a spiritual thing? No. But I saw my dad wearing Baltimore Orioles hats, wearing Baltimore Orioles clothes. I naturally had an indication that I wanted to be like my dad. We see it around here with Buffalo Bills. Like the entire families of people are Buffalo Bills fans. And I think it's hilarious when Jess has aunts and uncles that they vacation down in Florida. So they leave Buffalo to avoid all the weather, and they come back out, and what are they wearing? Buffalo Bills t-shirts, shorts, flip-flops. I'm like, you can't wear flip-flops in Buffalo in January, but whatever. But we have a natural, almost like we tend to associate ourselves with others that have invested in us. And that can be either for the good or for that. We all know people who've probably gone wayward and got involved with people that they probably shouldn't get involved with simply from the fact because they were getting attention from the wrong types of people instead of getting attention from people that were affecting them positively. Okay? So we talk about why does my walk matter? The first one we just talked about is they're watching. They're watching. I've got a picture at home on my laptop, and when my laptop goes to sleep, like your pictures you have saved on it will just kind of flash through. It was like a slideshow. I've got one that I kind of forgot about. of Lexi when she was probably a year and a half. And we had this little Melissa and Doug piano that she used to just kind of beat on and bang on. And but it got to be when she would hear my car going to the driveway, she would, Jess used to always tell me this, but I never saw it. She would run up and stand on the piano to look out the window and to just see if I was there, and then try to run over to the door before I got there. But there's a picture that Jess got of her, which is on top of the piano, and we got like these draw blinds that she had moved out of the way, so you can't see her. All you can see is her feet at the bottom of the draw blinds standing on the piano. But the thing is, there are people that we have that type of influence over, that we matter so much to, we have that type of impact on. They're trying to climb up just to see what you're doing. They're watching what you're doing spiritually. And to me, I would have never known that she was doing that had just not taken the picture. There's a lot of people that are watching what we're doing that we don't realize it. We gotta make sure we don't forget that. Okay, so if that's the case, what can I do? What can I do? Proverbs chapter 23. Proverbs chapter 23 and verse 26. Okay, Proverbs 23, 26 says, "My son, give me that heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways." Now, that's a bold thing that we feel to say as Christians, to say, hey, look at me, watch what I'm doing, and follow me. As Paul says in the New Testament, follow me as I follow Christ. We should be living our lives in such a way where we should be able to say that to other people that are watching us and looking to us for direction. Where we can say, hey, follow me, do what I'm doing. Come along with me, come along, serve alongside me, come be faithful alongside with me. Psalms 86:11. I'll turn it over. I got a few verses here. I'll turn it over. Psalms 86:11 says, "Teach me thy way, O Lord. I will walk in thy truth. Unite my heart to fear thy name." So if we really want to be able to lead the next generation to walk in truth, walk in life with the Lord, we need to first make sure that we are walking in truth and that our hearts are united to fear the name of the Lord. Okay? We can't really lead anybody unless we're walking the right way. I was when Jess and I were in Maryland, we were in a church in Delaware. I remember one day we pulled over because we thought there was an accident or something, because there's a town police officer, and he had, I think, 5 or 6 cars all pulled over on the side. This is like a country road. This was not like a major intersection. This was like there's a playground, a school, and then there's nothing for 7 miles until we got to church. Cornfields. I mean, it was middle of nowhere. Really. So we don't usually see 7 cars on our way to church. So to see 5 or 6 of them pull over all at once, we thought something would happen. We pull over, and I say, hey, they're hey. And the officer came on and said, yeah, this guy was speeding, and they were all just kind of following him. So we see the influences that we can have just by following the wrong people. One person was going, I don't know if they didn't know the speed limit, and everybody was just trying to keep up with traffic. So that line, he just got all on the radar gun. And then they were all kind of drawn into that for the wrong reasons. So we need to be sure that we're following the right people, and that we are being the right people for people to follow us. 1 Corinthians chapter 11. 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 1. And this is Paul talking here. I mentioned earlier, be ye followers of me, even I also am of Christ. Okay, so we need to be trying to live our lives in a way where we are following Christ, and we can encourage other people to follow us. Now, it's a great thing if people come to you and are looking for guidance, or looking for some sort of spiritual discernment, and you can point them in the right direction. Say, hey, I know this person, I know this group over here that's working, in this area that I think you'd be great with, but we need to be at a point in our own spiritual life where we can say, hey, follow me. We need to be willing to invest in people instead of just trying to move them over to others and let them become other people's responsibility. Typically, And I think mostly here when they get out of high school. Okay? It's important for us as adults here to take an interest in the 18 to 22-year-old and say, look, I've been through this, I've been through that phase of my life. Follow me. I can teach you some things, or come along. Just love on people, invest in them, and let them know that their spiritual growth doesn't have to stop when they get in high school. Romans 6:4. Romans 6:4 says, therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we should also walk in newness of life. So we see there again the importance of our own personal walk, but we need to be walking in newness of life for others to follow. Now, if we do these things, if we notice that our walk matters, and we notice that they're watching, and they're also following us. Okay. Another picture that came up on the laptop is again of Lex when she was little. She used to always try to put on my sneakers that were like way too big and try to walk around the house. Okay. And I used to always kind of worry because when they're toddlers, and they're not real stable on their own feet yet, let alone when they're in other people's shoes that are too big. But I remember when she started doing that, I remember thinking, those shoes are too big, she's going to get hurt. I got to go get her out there. So sometimes I would do that. But spiritually speaking, it's a good thing to leave behind a legacy of having some big shoes to fill. What a testimony would be to your life if when God calls you home, if the spiritual impact you had, that the spiritual shoes that you were wearing, other people felt like, man, they left some big shoes on. They were really doing a lot for the Lord. They were investing in people. They were leading others. They were really helping others to grow. Okay, so for number one, I just said down here, our walk matters because they're watching. Number two, they're following. And this really comes back to the point of, back to the 18 to 22-year-olds, because eventually they're watching, they're following, but eventually they're leading. Okay, they're not always going to be, I think of my own children, they're not going to be under my roof forever. I don't have the privilege of having it in my home to monitor every single thing that they're going to do spiritually. But God gives us the years that we have are limited to make that type of impact in lives of those around us. Whether it's children living in your home, whether it's people that at ADS that you might only have for 1 week to really make an impact on somebody's life. It could be somebody in a Sunday school class that comes on a bus tour or visits. It's only there one time. That you'll never see again. You may never even know what kind of impact it has. But eventually, they are leading. They are leading. Either leading our will to go home or leading our circle of influence. Okay, Proverbs 23:23. Proverbs 23:23 says, by the truth and so it not, also wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. Thy father and mother shall be glad, and she that beareth thee shall rejoice. So we look at those things, and the people that we have had an impact in our lives, people that God has allowed us to influence for him. Again, thinking whether it's family or not. There's going to come to a point where they're leaving, and we want to be able to have said that, I've invested in them in such a way that they're still, that it brings glory to us, and we're rejoicing.
Can I have that last verse?
Sure. Proverbs 23:23.
Twenty-three,
23. Yeah, I did 23, starting at 23, I went through verse 25. 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 4 says that the Lord may continue his word, which he spake concerning me, saying, if thy children take heed to their way, to walk before me in truth with all their heart and with all their soul, there shall not fail thee, said he, a man on the Israel. Okay, so we see that there are also not only great responsibilities for investing in those who God's entrusted to our care spiritually, but there are also some very awesome promises for us when we do that, when we're faithful to it. Okay? It says that if we continue to choose faithfulness, if thy children take heed to either way to walk in truth before me, with all their heart and all their soul, there shall not fail thee a man on the throne of Israel. So he's basically saying he's going to bless the nation of Israel by keeping a God-appointed king in charge of them as long as they were following the precepts and trying to live for him. 1 Kings chapter 9, you're still there. 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 4. This is another promise that goes along with the promises that God gives us for leading children. 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 4 says, And if thou wilt walk before me, as David thy father walked, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, and do according to all that I command thee, and will keep my statutes and judgments, then will I establish my throne of kingdom upon Israel forever, as I promised David thy father, saying, There is not fairly a man upon the throne of Israel. Okay, we see it there again. And oftentimes, if you know some of the Old Testament promises, a lot of times when God repeats something more than once, he's really just kind of cementing it in stone. Almost like an exclamation point, like, look, when I said it one time, I hope you heard it, but I'm going to say it again because I really mean it. This is important. If you do these things I'm telling you to do, there are good things, there are promises to follow. 1 Kings 3:14. And if thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and commandments, as David my father will, then I will lengthen thy days. And we see here also, we see the promise here from God, that God given to Solomon, that if he would walk in truth, walk in light, not only would his children be blessed, but God would lengthen his days, give him a longer life to enjoy what he was doing. So we do see there are a lot of verses here that go along with it. Some other verses, I won't turn to them, but 2 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 16, and 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 17 are some other verses you can look at. They talk about the promises that God will give to those that are walking in the light. So now, like we talked at the beginning about the importance of walking in the light for our own, to take personal inventory. How is your walk? How is your spiritual walk with the Lord? Now, it kind of brings us to a checklist here to know if you are walking in the light. And how do I know if I'm leading the type of life that others can emulate and follow and be on the right path doing so? If you turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 5, I've got the wrong text here. First. I don't have the text in here. I had 1 Corinthians 5:16. That's not the one. I gotta look at this. It's going to be nice. I'm going to have to look it up. I'm sorry about that. I got the wrong verse. But it's talking about when we get to the fruit of the Spirit. It's like Galatians 5:16. Galatians 5:16. That might be it. Okay, yeah, Galatians 5:16. I'm sorry about that. Galatians 5:16. So how do I know if I'm walking in the light? Okay, Galatians 5:16 says, "This I say then, walk in the Spirit, okay, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh." Okay, and we see here kind of a checklist, an inventory of how to tell if you are walking in the Spirit. Okay, verse 17. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other, so you cannot do the things that you would. But if you be led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Okay, now here we go. The works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like. Of which I tell you before, I have told you in time past, that they which do these things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Okay? So if we're living our lives in these types of ways, we know that we're not walking in the light. But verse 22, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Okay, so if we are walking in the light, the fruit that will be shown in our light, that we're actually on the right path, are those we indicate that the fruit of the Spirit. You just see that. In verses 22 and 23, love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance. So if we want to just know we're on the right path, those couple verses there give us a good inventory to kind of measure ourselves against and see how am I doing, how's my love, how's my joy, how's my hope, how's my patience, my meekness, and temperance, all those things. Does anybody have anything to add in closing, any comments or questions? All right, we'll close with a word for this. Father God, thank you so much for the opportunity to look at your word. Thank you for the privilege you give us, Father, to influence others for you. We thank you, Lord, as we try to walk in light and walk in truth. We thank you for your example, your Bible, the words you use in the Bible, the Scriptures. We can use to